Have you ever been in a moment where it felt like the world turned upside down? Where good seemed evil and evil was paraded as good? What if I told you that Jesus, the King of Kings, faced the greatest injustice in history, and it was all part of God's plan to save you and me? Today we're diving into one of the most intense and heart-wrenching scenes in the entire Gospel of John, the trial of Jesus before Pilate. Welcome back to Discovering Jesus, a journey through the book of John. This episode is called The King Rejected, the trial of Jesus. And we'll be exploring John 19, 1 through 15. Let's read this together from John 19, 1 through 3 in the NLT. Then Pilate had Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip. The soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put a purple robe on him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" they mocked as they slapped him across the face. Can you picture that? Jesus, beaten and mocked, a crown of thorns just digging into his skull, the soldiers spitting on him and slapping him. And here's the question. Why would the Son of God, the creator of the universe, allow himself to be treated this way? Why would he choose this path? Let's continue with John 19, 4 through 6. Pilate went outside again and said to the people, "I am going to bring him out to you now, but understand clearly that I find him not guilty." Then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said, "Look, here is the man." When they saw him, the leading priests and temple guards began shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Imagine this. Pilate is saying, "Look, I don't find anything wrong with him." And yet the crowd, fueled by the religious leaders, shouts, "Crucify him!" Here's a question for us to wrestle with. How often do we reject Jesus in our own lives, even when we know he's innocent, even when we know he's the truth? Have you ever felt the pull of the crowd, the pressure to go with the flow, even when you know it's against what Jesus stands for? Let's look at John 19, 7 through 9. The Jewish leaders replied, "By our law, he ought to die because he called himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was more frightened than ever. He took Jesus back into the headquarters again and asked him, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. Why is Jesus silent here? Pilate is scared. He's the Roman governor, the most powerful man in this trial, yet he's afraid. And Jesus, the one being beaten and mocked, stands there calmly. Could it be that Jesus' silence speaks louder than any words could? What if his silence is a sign of his complete trust in the Father's plan, even when it looks like everything is falling apart? Let's keep reading John 19, 10 through 11. "Why don't you talk to me?" Pilate demanded. "Don't you realize that I have the power to release you or crucify you?" Then Jesus said, "You would have no power over me at all unless it were given to you from above. So the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." Wow. Jesus looks at Pilate, the man who thinks he holds all the power, and essentially says, "You have no power except what's been given to you by God." It's a reminder that no matter how chaotic our lives may seem, no matter who appears to hold power over us, God is still in control. And here's a big question. Do we live like we believe that? Do we trust that God is still sovereign, even when everything around us looks like it's falling apart? Let's finish with John 19, 14 through 15. It was now about noon on the day of preparation for the Passover, and Pilate said to the people, "Look, here is your king." "Away with him," they yelled. "Away with him! Crucify him!" "What? Crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the leading priests shouted back. The Jewish leaders who were supposed to be waiting for their Messiah reject Jesus and declare, "We have no king but Caesar." It's heartbreaking, but it's also a mirror for us. Who is your king? When the pressure is on, when it costs you something, who do you declare as your king? Jesus? Or something else that feels safer in the moment? This passage is challenging us to look at our own hearts. If you've felt that nudge, that conviction, don't ignore it. Jesus endured the worst injustice so you and I could have life. He was rejected so that we could be accepted. If this message has resonated with you, I want to invite you to respond. Smash that like button if you found value here. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you can stay connected as we continue this journey through the book of John. Jump into the comments. Let me know what stood out to you most from this scene in Jesus' trial. If you want to partner with us in sharing the gospel, consider supporting us on Patreon. Together, we can reach more people with the good news of Jesus, fulfilling the Great Commission. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, Jesus is the King who was rejected so that we could be accepted. Never forget his love for you. God bless.